We really have had an eventful week politically, starting with a meeting in Pretoria last Sunday where the ANC top brass met with President Jacob Zuma in what has been revealed by ANC Treasurer General Mashatile to have been a meeting to ask him to vacate his position, a request he apparently declined. That meeting led to a roller coaster week, resulting in the postponement of the State of the Nation address and subsequently the postponement and cancellation of multiple events, including an award ceremony called the Ubuntu Awards that is linked to the SONA. We are now joined by two analysts to look at these developments and try to get some sense of the way forward. Mathekga is in studio with us. So, Ralph, a very, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting
me. And joining us via Skype, we've got Khaya Sithole, who's in Cape Town. Khaya, good morning to you.
Good morning, Leah.
So how was the State of the Nation? You were obviously there to attend it, right?
Yeah, it was wonderful because for once the crowds were not as hectic as they usually are, so it was easy to walk straight into Parliament.
And no doubt you were the best dressed there last night, Tim.
Of course, being the only one on the red carpet.
Exactly, no competition. But listen, let's start while we're talking to you, Ralph. I mean, what a week. It's just been a very difficult roller coaster week for South Africans. What have you made of this particular week?
I think for me, what has become very clear is that clearly the centre is no longer holding within the ANC. So, of course, you had the starting point where the National Executive Committee essentially mandated the top six to go and negotiate the transition, as they call it, with President Jacob Zuma, and he quite simply told them that no such thing was going to happen. So what they then did is that they speak to the National Working Committee, and then the National Working Committee has no constitutional powers, according to the ANC. They're simply an administrative structure. So, of course, they were never going to come up with any resolution, so they committee. But of course, the National Executive Committee itself was unlikely to reach a conclusion that was different to what the top six had said, because if Jacob Zuma is in a position to tell...
All right, the joys of Skype, but we'll keep Khaya on the line because I'm sure it'll come right again. But I've got Ralph in studio with me here. Yeah. So Ralph, I mean, we were hearing what Khaya was saying, and I can imagine you're very much on the same page as him.
Exactly. I mean, the greatest disappointment is that the ANC internal problems have spilled into the state to a point where we have had, for the first time in recent times, the postponement of the State of the Nation. Yeah. Technically, it's a postponement, but symbolically, it's actually, a clear indication of where we are as a nation. We are a nation in a crisis. We are a nation that is finding it very difficult to work our way out of this crisis. And the ANC, unfortunately, from the beginning, the party has shown very poor leadership about this. They did not attend to this as an urgent matter. And the only time we started seeing a sense of urgency on the side of the ANC is when the opposition parties threatened to actually disrupt the State of the Nation. And from then that you've seen the ANC starting to talk and starting to take this thing very seriously and also starting to talk to the nation. However, time has passed to a point where people are no longer patient about this. People are actually saying to the ANC that it's quite a lot that you are putting the country through because you cannot deal with the transition internally. What did you expect as a party leadership? Didn't you think you had to expedite this thing much earlier than you seem to be going about it now?
Yeah.
So it's about expectations that have been created there, and those expectations have not been met, and that is quite a concern for the broader nation.
And I think a very big concern as well, and many people talking about this, is the handling of the situation by the ANC President, Cyril Ramaphosa. And many people saying, Zuma's on his way out, Ramaphosa's on his way in, and Ramaphosa's got a lot more to lose in terms of reputational damage if he does not do this properly. And right now, opposition parties are not happy with the way things are handling. In fact, we're reporting, and one of our top stories in the news this morning is that they're saying if action isn't taken they've given Sunday as a date, they are calling for a complete shutdown of South Africa, basically, until Zuma goes. And we don't want that situation to happen, do we?
The truth is that the opposition have done a great deal of work on this. Had it not been for the opposition, my sense is that the ANC will have just played dead and continue with this situation where President Jacob Zuma was going ahead to deliver the State of the Nation. And it took the opposition to try to stop that. And the big problem as well that is coming out is that we are getting a clear sense as to what is the power balance within the ANC. There was a sense of euphoria after the Nasrec conference that there is a great deal of change that is coming and so forth. But now in the manner in which the ANC is handling this, the negotiations that are are being undertaken, it is very clear that it's going to take time for the ANC to process some of the key decisions. This is just the beginning. You imagine when you look at other areas, including policy as well, because there is this sharp disagreement within the ANC about policies, what we are going to do with policies. There are those divisions that continue. If the ANC cannot agree on a president who's supposed to leave anyway, if they cannot expedite it quickly, you ask yourself, what is it that lie ahead? Are they in a position to coalesce and come up with a consensus on major key policy issues where people are expecting a sense of clarity from there?
Yeah.
And I think I have doubt if they will be able to do that, unless otherwise they change the game plan altogether. They deal with these things as an urgent matter.
I just want to see if we've got Khaya back on the line. I'm not sure. Khaya, are you back with us? Not yet. All right, Khaya, we're still trying to get him back on. So Ralph, we'll continue our discussion here. One of the things that I bring up opposition parties because they've had a lot to say during this time, and obviously they would do because they're relishing in this.
Exactly.
And that's the reality is that they want to gain votes out of this. 2019 is around the corner, and they want to gain favour. But one thing that they are saying, and it's quite evident, is that did the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa have a plan for this moment? Because it feels like that they're going ahead now trying to formulate a plan of how they're going to remove President Jacob Zuma out of office. Shouldn't this already have been thought about? Shouldn't this already have been a plan that was just going to be put in motion and we would move on smoothly with that transition? But it seems now these delays are saying, well, look, we don't really know how to handle this.
The party is improvising. I don't think they have a grand plan on how to deal with this. I do think that if they had a plan, they should have come out of Nasrec with that plan. But the problem, Leon, as well, is that the ANC came out of Nasrec. It was just a conglomeration of interest groups within the ANC. I mean, you listen to the top 6 leadership of the ANC in the first week they tried to deal with this. They were talking past each other. They were contradicting each other in the open space, in the public media, as if they don't have platform through which to meet and deal and arrive at a grand plan to deal with this. So I do understand, and I'm quite sympathetic to Mr. Ramaphosa that maybe this is the first of the grand decision he has had to make. Maybe he is understanding the party that he's inherited, how it is going to function, and perhaps he was trying to find out how the power balance is. But now it is very clear that you don't have that solid coherence within the party on how to deal with this. Each and every individual you speak to among the top 6, you listen to top individuals within the top 6, they speak a very different language about this. And Mr. Ramaphosa's job is to tie it all together and say to the nation, this is our position. It's becoming very difficult when he gets contradicted by some of his comrades who are supposed to be at least showing a solid front in dealing with this.
Yeah, let's bring Khaya back into the conversation because I believe we've got you back on the line now. So we've been pretty much so discussing the events that have been happening this week. But now, yesterday, we also were hearing more stories coming out from the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa saying that he will not offer any immunity in terms of a prosecution to President Jacob Zuma if he does face these charges, which we, of course, are seeing these all developing now. So obviously, this is a very big part of the negotiations. None of us know what is being spoken about, but I suppose we're getting clues, aren't we?
Yeah, so the way I sort of looked at that statement was that it was a meaningless statement. Cyril Ramaphosa is not in a position to offer any form of immunity to a man who has never been convicted of anything. So for me, that was essentially a really pointless statement for anyone to release. But I think what is key here is that clearly President Jacob Zuma has asked the question to say, guys, is there a way to at least politically insulate me from the pending criminal charges, whether it's the 783 charges or the Commission of Inquiry in relation to state capture? So of course he was always going to ask that, and the ANC is now trying to figure out if there is a legal basis for them to be able to try and protect the president, because until he sort of has that sense of comfort that they are not going to throw him under the bus, he's going to hold on to his presidential office for as long as he can. Because remember, Leanne, the presidential office offers very unique powers. It offers the ability to identify and select who becomes the director of public prosecutions. It gives him the ability to decide what the terms of reference are for the State Capture Commission. So he's not going to relinquish that office until he's in a position to sort of be comfortable that whoever replaces him there is going to be able to consider what his unique criminal circumstances are before making any particular decision. So, of course, unfortunately, until you are convicted in South Africa, the question of immunity does not arise. And even if it did, it would never be a political party that offers the immunity, but other structures, legally mandated structures that can consider the question of immunity. So I thought yesterday's conversation about immunity not being offered was essentially not a very useful statement because it was never on the table in the first place, legally.
Yeah, interesting. Paul Mashatile, now he of course is now the ANC Treasurer General, and every media house covering that sound clip that was leaked out of an address that he gave, and basically in a nutshell making it clear that on Sunday the president was told to go, and that if the ANC NEC had met, they would have told him, look, you need to resign, and that's just the way it is. But that never happened. What did you make of Paul Mashatile's comments that are now very common knowledge to everybody?
So, Leanne, for me, those particular comments are quite, interesting, because what is happening here is that you've got a person like Jesse Duarte and Ace Magashule who are adamant that the president will serve out his term until 2019, and then you've got other individuals within the top six who clearly hold a different view. So this conversation that we had in December, where people were saying that the ANC is united, the top six is on the unity ticket, has now been proven to be a very false assumption. So, of course, the issue here is that you are always going to have people within the ANC who want President Jacob Zuma to be gone. And I think we need to remember that Paul Mashatile in particular has been calling for this long before Nasrec happened. So for me, it was not surprising that he still holds that view. But of course, the question of whether he should have ventilated it in the way that he ventilated it was something that needed to be discussed. But also, quite importantly, remember, we had this pending NEC meeting, and the NEC meeting, as Paul Mashatile has now told us, was going to say that we are recalling the president. But of course, the NEC does not have a legal standing in this conversation. It only has a political ability to persuade the president to resign. And for me, if the president had said on Sunday that he's not going to resign, being fully aware that the top six had been sent by the NEC, I didn't see what the difference would be between the conversations on Sunday and the conversations on Wednesday night, because I suspect that he was going to reach essentially the same conclusion on Wednesday night. So the cancellation of the NEC meeting was the right decision, because I think what would have been more humiliating and embarrassing for the ANC is for the president to say, yes, there was an NEC meeting on a Wednesday and I'm still defying them, because then the political capital that the ANC will be losing this conversation will be much greater than what we said when only the top six went to him. Yeah. So if the president feels on a Sunday that the ANC has not provided valid reasons for him to resign, by Wednesday nothing had changed. So the cancellation of the NEC meeting essentially made sense. And until they're in a position to persuade him, whether through one-on-one conversations with President Cyril Ramaphosa or through the top six, Jacob Zuma is not going to change his position, because clearly he feels that him being kicked out of office has got personal culpability implications that he needs to protect for as long as he can.
All right, we have to leave it there, unfortunately, in the interest of time. Khaya, thanks so much for talking to us. Khaya Sithole, and of course, Ralph Mathekga. When do you think the State of the Nation will be?
I'm really not sure.
Nobody can tell.
Because logistically, these things are becoming even more difficult. You gotta need the president. Even the budget, I'm getting worried if we're gonna even have the budget on the budget day.
Yeah, all right. Let's see what happens this weekend. Ralph, thanks very, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's take a break here on the program.